Deji! You're an imposter! My coach yelled 2 inches from my nose. I tried to practice equanimity, but I was too focused on dodging spittle and the white crust that built up in the corner of my mouth. My coach, Edmund Tiny Flanoy, you could call him crazy. He had questionable tactics. He was like the controversial NCAA basketball coach, Bobby Knight. He'd throw a chair in the middle of the game. He'd headbutt a student athlete. My coach yelled at the parents in practice. He was quick to let you know that this team was not a democracy. This team was a dictatorship. Fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests, my traveling league basketball team was a dictatorship, but it was also a family. It was a family dedicated to defense. And that was indicative by our traditional pregame chant. Our coach would yell, "Check!" and we'd respond, "K&E, check, Bulls, 1, 2, 3, we will D you up." And if you heard that chant, you knew you were in for a rough Saturday afternoon. We beat teams by an average of 20 points per game. How did we do that? We focused on our defensive efforts. We didn't celebrate the player with the most points that day. The teammate we celebrated when we won was the player who got the most steals that day. Because we learned that the more steals we got, the less possessions the other team had. The less possessions they had, the less shots they had. And that would secure a victory for us. The K&E in Kids in Education is in K&E Bulls stood for Kids in Education. My coach, while his methods were questionable, was an educator. He taught us lessons on the basketball court, and those lessons transferred into life. In particular, when we focused on defense, we celebrated the guy with the most steals. That lesson taught us to focus on the intangibles. If we focused on the intangibles, we could win the game. That lesson transferred to real life in that if you focus on the intangibles in life, if you focus on the details of what you're doing, you can conquer any obstacle. I say my coach's methods were questionable. He had unconventional ways of teaching us these lessons. In fact, we practiced for 3 hours. Now, you might say, practicing for 3 hours, having a long practice, what's that, right? Well, we were a basketball team that practiced for 3 hours without a basketball. We had players who were 17 years old on down to 6 years old. And we'd show up early to practice, about 30 minutes, just so we could play with the ball. And that taught us another lesson. I went on to go play at a very high level in high school and also play college basketball. None of those teams practiced as hard as we did in that gym. What I learned from that was, in order to be in shape, to practice hard for those 3 hours, I had to focus on my physical fitness, and in turn, I had to take my nutrition very seriously. In that lesson, I learned that in order to get to my best as an athlete, to get to the next level, I had to make those things very important. And that lesson transferred into real life where I had to focus on preparedness in order to get to where I want to be as a professional. We put in hours upon hours of blood, sweat, and tears with our teammates. day in, day out, we attempted to overcome whatever Tiny would throw at us. And in turn, after that, we became a fraternity. We created a bond, something that we were very proud of. To this day, I can be walking down the street, and I might see another K&E teammate who I haven't seen in years, and we'll strike up a conversation, because we're truly brothers, and we're proud of that. In fact, to this day, I still wear my K&E Bulls basketball jersey when I play in my adult league. 2 weeks ago, a referee noticed my jersey, and as I'm standing on the block waiting for another player to shoot a free throw, the ref asked me a question. He said, "Do you coach with Tiny?" And I smiled. I looked at him, and I said with pride, "No, I don't coach with Tiny. I played for Tiny." Toastmaster?